Hello everyone, and welcome back to the AMOS projects, our course on agile methods and open source software development. In the previous sessions, we looked at the core structure of the AMOS project and the core practices, including the team meeting that students have to perform. This is really the essential part, but we will need many more practices to make it a comprehensive agile methods process. So we will look at those over the next few sessions. In order to get there and to understand how agile methods work, we will have to look at software processes in general first, specifically at classic, traditional, sometimes also called waterfall style software development processes, how agile methods are different and where they differ, and what that means for software development. So this is what we're going to do. When we look at traditional software development, or the classic model, we can certainly distinguish these four key functions, and they've been pretty much stable for other processes as well. There's product management, engineering management, software development, and quality assurance. And these are roles, ideally, or best cast as roles that people play. People perform practices as part of larger processes, as the stuff they do in the particular role, with the purpose of creating final work results or intermediate artifacts, etc. This terminology of roles, practices, and artifacts is very fundamental. It's a meta model or a language for talking about software development processes, a minimal language. So here you can see how these roles interact. You can see the product manager is probably the most communicative role, but about everyone else has to talk to other people playing other roles as well, and we will see some more later on. This is basically how you can structure these different roles. For example, so typically people playing these roles are in their own department, and exemplary practices are being shown here. A product manager plans the functionality, creates the so-called MRD and PRD for basically the business plan and product specification. Engineering plans the overall release, and developers program, and quality assurance engineers create test scripts, test plans, create bug reports, etc. So let's walk through these functions in a little bit of detail now to see what they originally meant in software development, classic software development, and what they became in agile methods. So first of all, product management. It's the management of a company's products along multiple dimensions. So there's the product life cycle, it's been new, created, it's growing, it's mature, and there's, say, the product portfolio. Maybe a product is part of a larger product family or product line. And then there are many other dimensions. For this, please, to learn more about this, please take our software product management course. Simplifying, a product manager's job is to answer the question what needs to be developed, and then also in what order. So what is of highest priority, what needs to be developed first, what needs to be developed second. And as you can see, a product manager is a highly communicative person. He or she talks to an engineering manager all the time, software developers, quality assurance manager and engineer, for various purposes, to communicate features and functionality, mostly to technical people, but it's more about planning with the engineering manager, more about actual technical content with software developers, etc. In addition, there's the other side where a product manager needs to talk with customers or people representing a market, marketing managers, etc., etc. We can distinguish, without going into too much detail here, strategic product management from technical product management. Strategic product management is about the business case for a particular new product. So it's about the strategic issues. Is there business to be had with building a new product? How much is it? What investment would be needed? And a technical product manager is about the actual product specification. What features are needed and what are the details? How do they work from a user perspective? In Agile methods, there is basically no strategic product management. There's only technical product management. The product owner is mostly a technical product manager. And here are a couple of processes that product managers perform while enacting practices to get some results. So a strategic product manager will perform opportunity assessment to see whether there is business to be had with some product, and if so, he or she will create a business plan, or the MRD, how it's traditionally been called, the marketing requirements document. Further down, a technical product manager will create a product specification with all the gory details about functional and non-functional requirements, leading to the product requirements document, the PRD. This MRD, again, almost like a business plan, needs to contain the basic product idea, market and competition, the product architecture, not on a technical level, but in terms of what standards to comply with, what platforms to build on, which are strategic decisions, as well as organizational planning. I'm not going into much detail here because we have a whole separate course on that, but a marketing requirements document traditionally is this long and lengthy document in which the business case is being laid out for a product, the ideas being described, the market, the financing needed to get there, any barriers to entry, etc., as you may have learned partially at least already in a marketing course. The PRD for the actual technical specification traditionally also is a lengthy document, sometimes longer than the business plan because it lists one by one the features and the functionality page after page, and depending on the size of the project, it could be hundreds of pages. In Agile methods, this is how the product backlog, this is what the product backlog became, but with very different pragmatics. In classic software development, the PRD, as shown here, is a static document written once and then doesn't change because the assumption is you don't have to change it. You just implement what was written down there. Here's another example, etc. All right, at this stage, let's create some sympathy for the job of a product manager by looking at a somewhat humorous video from a Hollywood movie called The Pentagon Wars. And what you will see is a project manager, effectively, but in what you will see, mostly the function as a product manager, meaning it's all about the requirements of the product, not so much the management of an implementation project for it. So that's why, even though we are basically looking at the life of a project manager, this is really now about product management. So let me get this video started here, and then we will discuss what we can learn from it.
We have met that objective and then some. The Bradley Armored Personnel Carrier will bring troops to a combat zone swiftly, efficiently, and safely. It will hold 11 men, plus a driver, and features a 20-millimeter cannon, which will provide ample firepower and at the same time flexibility. Lightly armored, speedy, and solidly engineered, our troops will be arriving at the battlefield in the very finest American technology has to offer. And at $1.5 million per, a real bargain.
Nice work, Colonel.
Outstanding.
Damn impressive.
In other words, it was designed to be a big taxi cab, drive guys to the battlefield and go back home.
But how did it end up with a turret on top?
Well, this is all well and good, Colonel Smith, but...
Something wrong, General?
Well, with this gorilla in production, I don't suppose there's going to be anything left in the budget for my scout.
Doubt it, Bob.
You don't need scouts. You have radar, air recon, satellites.
You always need a scout. And you know what I'm thinking? Why couldn't this thing serve as a scout?
But it's a troop carrier, General.
But this is a speedy vehicle. Why can't it be both?
Well, for one thing, it's too big. And for the other, you can't really see out all that much from inside.
Sounds like a design flaw to me.
Design flaw? No.
No, we'll just stick a turret on top with lots of opticals.
But then, sir, it'll be even bigger.
Well, what's your problem, Smith? Not elegant enough for you?
Well, the thing is, General, it's kind of hard to do a sneak and peek when you're over 10 feet tall.
He's got a point, Bob.
Well, all I know is we need a scout. This is fast enough to do the job, and it's funded.
Well, actually, we're a hair over budget.
You turned the Bradley into a scout. We're going to be selling them off to some El Presidente de Chimichanga in no time.
Anything for surveillance ends up south of the border before the paint even dries.
When you needed that anti-aircraft gun, who backed you up on that?
You did, Bob.
And who testified to appropriations on behalf of that gun?
You did, Bob.
I'm talking to appropriations next week. Now, do I sell you on my scout or do I not?
You did, Bob. And how about some portholes along the side for individual firearms so the fellas can stick out their guns and shoot people?
Good. And you know what, Colonel? We already have the turret. We ought to get the biggest bang we can up there.
I'm sorry, bang, sir?
You can't hurt anybody with that pansy-ass gun. Add on some firepower.
Where am I supposed to fit the extra ammo?
I don't know. Can't you just shift things around? Make some room.
You already got 4,400 rounds of machine gun ammo. Now you want to add 25-millimeter shells.
General wants his ammo.
You can't have his ammo unless he runs alongside this thing carrying it.
Well, can you just squeeze it in?
No.
Oh, come on, just squeeze it in.
We're not trying on Levi's here, Colonel.
Are you telling me that in a vehicle this size you can't find room for a few rounds of ammunition?
Not in its current configuration, no, sir.
So the configuration's wrong.
There must be something you can dump.
Dump, sir?
Something you don't need.
General, the interior is very spare. Besides the ammunition and the men...
Maybe you can leave one of the fellows behind. Put the ammo where the men go.
Sir, it is a troop carrier.
So, make a couple extra trips. What's the difference?
They want a transport that doesn't carry men and a scout that's got a cannon as big as a tank's on it.
And portholes.
Oh, great! Portholes. So the guys can shoot out whatever they can't hit with their cannon.
You don't have to buy the damn thing, Jones. Just draw it. That's one hell of a cannon.
That's a problem.
Why?
You go out in a battlefield with this pecker sticking out of your turret, and the enemy's gonna unload on you with all they got. Might as well paint a big red bullseye on the side.
But it's a troop carrier, not a tank.
Do you want me to put a sign on it in 50 languages? I'm a troop carrier, not a tank. Please don't shoot at me.
This was gonna be so beautiful.
That's good work, Smith.
Looks perfect to me.
Thank you, sir.
Thing is,
Yes, General?
looks a little like a tank with that cannon on top. Probably gonna draw more fire.
Actually, sir, that has come to our attention.
We know it's not a tank, but will the other side?
I guess we could always thicken the armor, toughen up the hide a bit.
Colonel Smith, could you explain why you put those portholes there?
Yes, sir. As per your request, so the men could shoot out at the enemy.
You're joking, aren't you?
Besides, portholes? What are we in now, the Navy? Say, you think you could make this thing amphibious? You know, get the troops across a river?
No. No, sir. No. No.
Amphibious? The Bradley's supposed to swim?
In theory, at least.
Amphibious troop carrier / scout.
Slash tank.
Couple more months, I bet they can get this thing to fly.
What's this in the margin? Please help me. I am losing my mind. RLS.
Lieutenant Colonel Robert Laurel Smith, Head of Oversight and Development.
Aluminum. This thing's got an aluminum skin.
Huh?
Anything an enemy tank fires at is gonna go through it like a hot knife through butter.
We're doing the specs on using steel rather than aluminum. Of course, steel is much heavier than aluminum, so it won't go as fast.
No, we can't lose speed. We lose speed, it won't work as a scout vehicle.
It won't keep pace with the M1 tanks either.
Thicker armor's a reactive measure. Let's think proactive here. I say equip the thing with anti-tank missiles. Then it can blast those enemy tanks before they get a chance to fire. What do you think, Colonel?
Fine!
Anti-tank missiles?
I don't know.
Where do I put them? The men will have to wear the missiles as hats.
I don't know, Jones. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Colonel, there's no room. We're not talking
About
about...
a pair of Levi's. I know! God damn it! What we are talking about is 11 years with nothing to show for it. Except an ulcer the size of the District of Columbia and a career that's on permanent hold. You see this? I've been a bird colonel so long, I swear I'm growing feathers. Now, if you have to design hats to hold those goddamn missiles, then just do it. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. If you'd all just take your seats. Thank you. We are pleased to present a scale model of the new Bradley fighting vehicle. Featuring scout, troop transport, and anti-tank capabilities. It carried 6 men.
How many was it supposed to carry?
11.
Bradley is outfitted with the most sophisticated surveillance equipment ever developed. It is also equipped with a rapid-fire cannon and an anti-tank rocket launcher.
Which means it's loaded with
1,500 shells and 10-tow anti-tank missiles.
So in summation, gentlemen, what you have before you is
a troop transport that can't carry troops, a reconnaissance vehicle that's too conspicuous to do reconnaissance,
And a quasi-tank that has less armor than a snowblower, but has enough ammo to take out half of DC.
Fantastic.
Congrats.
All right, so let's go back to the slides. You probably, or I hope, you enjoyed you enjoyed this short video. Please start a class discussion, TA. Please start a class discussion on what happened here. So what can we learn about about product management or the challenges of product management here. So let me pick this up and give you my answer. What we saw was a classic case of unstable requirements in the terminology of traditional software development, or more commonly known as feature creep. What that is the requirements keep changing, the scope is not defined, and as a consequence, you don't have clear goals, you don't have clear timelines because it's all changing. And the sources of this problem, or the causes of this problem of feature creep are, for example, here multiple stakeholders with different goals. Also meddling stakeholders who are involving themselves partially in the design of the tank in this case. From a product management perspective, there's also an unclear market. The feature creep leads to a cost explosion because you just can't nail down things. There's a constant rework, constant change, etc. There are all kinds of inconsistencies between the requirements, leading to workarounds and not that great solutions, or sometimes simply improper solutions. At the same time, you may have noticed, and this may be specific to the defense contractor industry, how long all of this took. So the photos or the pictures of the presidents in the background kept changing, and the poor guy, our product manager here, was losing his hair over the stalling of his wonderful project. Anyway, I think this video speaks to many fears of software product managers, not just defense contractors, as to exactly this problem that in the real world things keep changing. And it's the key challenge that Agile methods later on are picking up to redesign and change the classic software development process. Remember those large documents that I just showed you, the MRD and PRD? That has, those have the assumption that you can nail down requirements once, and then they will be stable for the next 2-3 years. As this video illustrated, that may not be the case. All right, on to engineering management. Engineering management is the management of a company's development process along similar dimensions or the same dimensions as those of product management, for example, the product lifecycle and the product portfolio. Simplifying again, an engineering manager asks who gets to do what, and also by when should they ideally be finished, to the extent that it's possible to set these deadlines. So an engineering manager is primarily tasked with breaking down tasks and allocating resources to tasks. The resources means software developers. And an engineering manager also has to be a communicative person, because they talk to the product manager on the one side to understand requirements, release plans, roadmaps, and to the software developers on the other hand. In addition, they communicate with quality assurance, from which they receive feedback as to the quality of the product being developed, and they may have to talk with support engineers, support managers, in order to get the product ready to be released to the market, and that support can be provided to it. Here are a couple of example processes. Engineering manager cares a lot about release planning, so mapping the features based on the prioritization provided by a product manager into a particular time frame, the release. allocating resources to various tasks in that release plan, and the relating artifacts are the actual release plan as well as a detailed project plan, or more often these days a task board like a Kanban board where you can see who is doing what and also often the status of progress of work. There are other processes. An engineering manager may have to deal with an outsourcing partner, and an engineering manager is also often responsible for performing a project retrospective to learn about how to improve the process of software development at a company for the next upcoming project or product development cycle. Finally, or next, then there is software development, the actual programming, coding, and it's the process of turning requirements, features, what we find as product backlog entries in the product backlog and Scrum, into working software. So the software developer is tasked or must answer the question, how are we going to do that? And to some extent, the software developer also answers the question to a product manager and engineering manager, how quickly can it be done? So in classic software development, you may sometimes have an engineering manager who makes the estimates as to size and ultimately duration of implementation. But in agile methods, we'll see, or you already learned, that it is the software developers who make those estimates, and that's what you manage by. So a software developer has a slightly more narrow set of communication partners, smaller set, and it's mostly the engineering manager, but also the product manager and quality assurance. The engineering manager in classic development tells the software developer what their job is. The product manager explains the actual content, what do the features mean, and the quality assurance engineer provides feedback about the quality of the code being developed, mostly in the form of bug reports, but also other form of reports. And so these are the two key practices: estimating the size or effort of some job coming up, and also performing the actual job. Finally, there is quality assurance, and it's the process of assuring that the software being developed matches or meets a certain defined quality. And obviously, it's left open here what quality means. Mostly, again, simplifying, but mostly it means in real life software development, is it good enough to meet the expectations of a market or a particular customer and to make them happy. And so the ultimate yes or no decision that quality assurance provides is, should the software be released or not? Yes or no. They have typically veto power over releasing the software to a market. And implied again is the question, is it good enough? Does it meet quality criteria? Where quality is, in this context, the degree to which the software conforms to stakeholder expectations. So while it may be desirable to have some absolute notion and idea of quality, in real life it's always a question, do you meet some particular bar? Is it good enough? And not necessarily do you meet some absolute criterion of quality, because it really depends on a lot of context factors whether something is releasable, should be released or not. Quality assurance faces multiple stakeholders and who they have to work with, and as they develop test plans and test scripts to test the quality and come to a judgment call on releasable or not. From product management, they learn about the features and they need to test that the features are there. From engineering management, they receive aspects of general product quality and is the software evolvable. This is a concern to engineering management itself, but they may ask quality assurance for help. And finally, quality assurance, or the question of is it releasable, also needs to cover non-functional aspects like operations cost and usability, and other forms of non-functional requirements that that will influence the tests, test scripts, test plans, and the ultimate decision of release or not release. So the quality assurance manager, like an engineering manager, typically he or she has a department of quality assurance engineers, communicates with, both of them communicate with about everyone else. The managers more with each other and the engineers more among each other themselves, and all of them with the product manager. So here again, the basic processes and test plans. You may know some of this from test-driven development from ADAP, our course on advanced design and programming. You can automate tests and have test scripts or test code repeatedly carry out these automated tests. But you may also have to define scripts for manual testing because some things aren't easily tested in an automatic way. The actual sign-off can be as simple or as complicated as possible, the sign-off on whether to release or not, and usually an email is fine. Often, quality assurance is also tasked with assembling the final whole product, meaning creating the actual release, finishing the build process, adding all the collateral, and putting it traditionally onto a DVD or perhaps into one downloadable piece of software, or simply stocking a shop with software to download. So at this stage, let's have a short quiz on organizational issues and traditional software development. Where in an organizational chart, an org chart, would you put product management? Would you put it into sales and marketing or into engineering, or would you make it a standalone department? And same question for where would you put quality assurance? Would you put it into engineering or product management, or would you make it a standalone department? So please discuss it for a bit with the TA, and then I will be back providing my own opinion. All right, so my answer to this, to question 1, where to put product management, is straightforward. In my opinion, it should be a standalone department. First of all, it's perhaps the most important function from the overall success of a company, because product management needs to understand what it is that the market needs. Even if you have fabulous engineering and they build a wonderful project, if it actually doesn't meet the customer or market needs, then you will lose. If you make it standalone, you will also often give it revenue responsibility, and then it needs to be standalone to not have any interference. What would those interferences be? Well, in sales and marketing, if you were to put product management there, typically product management will tilt too much towards short-term features and functionality, because there is this powerful salesperson who can bring in this multi-million-dollar sale if only there was this one additional function. And it's completely tactic and reactive and not strategic if you just pick up functions because some sales guy tell you this is what's needed in the market right now. The opposite might happen in engineering. Product management might focus too much on overall product quality, wonderful architectures, nice evolvable software, but the software doesn't really have all the functionality that's needed to win in the market. Engineering tends to focus too much on inner qualities rather than the features and functionality needed by a market. So I think that it's actually a consensus, or it should be a consensus, that product management should be standing alone, which is not necessarily the reality. Sales and product management most of the time is still in sales and marketing, and also sometimes in engineering, and not nearly as often is it standalone. Quality assurance is a little bit different. Many departments put it into engineering. I would speak against that, because an engineering manager pressured to get the product to market will not like it if quality assurance says, no, that's not good enough, because it ultimately means the engineering manager and his or her team failed in delivering the software with sufficient quality on time. So you need to make quality assurance independent of engineering management or in the engineering department. And so you can either make it standalone or you can put it into product management. Product managers should have a slightly more diverse opinion. Of course, they want to go to market to not miss a window of opportunity, but they also know that with poor quality, they might blow that opportunity further down the road. So a product manager will be a bit more judicious whether they would override a veto by the quality assurance department. But usually, since they have this one key responsibility of deciding on releases or not, they should probably be a standalone department. All right, so in this introductory session on software processes, we looked at the classic software development process, or at least the 4 key functions of product management, engineering management, software development, and quality assurance that constitute about every software development process. And we will use this in the upcoming sessions on how to define other various forms of software development processes, but most notably, of course, Scrum. Thank you very much and see you in a bit.